We're here at the VMware Public Sector Innovation Summit with Jim Cosby, CTO for Public Sector Partners and Federal Civilian at NetApp. Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
Wyatt, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Terrific. Well, let me start by asking, how do you see agencies and the American public benefiting from the government's adoption of a multi-cloud IT strategy?
That's a great question, Wyatt. I think today data is key in everything we do, right? So without data, we can have lots of applications and servers anywhere, but at the end of the day, the data is important. And I think the flexibility of multi-cloud is so important around the data for several reasons. We need to allow our federal agencies and our customers to have the optimum location to run their applications and access their data, and the optimal cost, right? And that means flexibility, multi-cloud. So we don't want to lock any customers into one cloud or the other. We want to let them have their data in 3 or 4 different clouds, the major cloud service providers out there. And multi-cloud is going to support that and give them a better quality of service and a lower consumption cost. And it's also going to give them a lower out-of-pocket cost, right? So I think multi-cloud is going to be very key going forward, and there are a lot of federal agencies focusing on that now. Department of Defense, civilian agencies, and there's a lot of programs out there that are focusing on multi-cloud, these joint domain programs. Things like JWCC, formerly known as JEDI, or things like JADC2, which are these multi-domain coalition sharing programs. They're all about multi-cloud. So the federal government's gotten smart, and I think it's going to really help them once they start to adopt it.
And then how do you see public sector agencies taking more innovative approaches to things like cybersecurity and data protection using the cloud?
That is a next best question, Wyatt, in my opinion, that parallels that first one. The security is paramount, and there are a lot of efforts around the security of data, especially in cloud. So the government started out 10, 12 years ago with something called Cloud First. And that was an effort around driving everything to cloud to try to leverage costs, to save costs, make it more flexible. And then they realized after they did that, maybe not everything fits perfectly well in the cloud. So they changed that to Cloud Smart. And now the Cloud Smart initiative is about really putting what makes sense in the cloud and occasionally keeping something on premise to where it makes sense to run it there better. And then the security part is paramount there regardless of the location. But in particular in cloud, there's a lot of efforts around security, one of which is called FedRAMP. And FedRAMP is a requirement around data services or application services in the cloud that has a low and a moderate and a high rating. And this assures the federal government agencies that that service has been tested and vetted to a secure level so they can use that. And some of them have requirements that information remains on U.S. soil or is managed by U.S. personnel. And FedRAMP helps to secure that. There's other things out there, including ATOs or authority to operate. Those still have to be achieved in addition to FedRAMP. So the Chief Information Security Officers or CISOs, they're still driving that as well. These are both really, really good measures. And then there's others out there too, like FIPS compliance, right? So most agencies are looking at something called FIPS 140-2 or FIPS 140-3 that deal with certifications around encryption and information management. And then most agencies are starting to store data encrypted at rest and during transit. And all of these are best practices that I think the federal government's looking for in cloud.
And then how do you see the digital workforce enablement helping government agencies improve how they attract and retain skilled employees?
That's a really good question. And I think that DWE or digital workforce enablement is a win-win situation for the federal government and the employees. And the reason being that it enables the workers, the employees, to have the latest technology, the latest, smartest capabilities at their fingertips. That will let them get their job done more efficiently and effective and get more work done in less time. And at the same time, that's going to reward them and give them a sense of job satisfaction that they're doing something well and getting it done. And once they realize that the federal government agencies are enabling that, that will attract them because it's going to be a better place to work, a better job. And they'll get more done, which is better for the federal government agency, and they'll be rewarded and be happy about doing it.
And then lastly, how public sector agencies have had to acquire novel IT solutions quickly to serve remote workers and ensure business continuity. So how are those efforts shaping longer-term IT acquisition strategies to kind of keep up with things?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Wyatt. And the pandemic was a tough thing for all of us across the board, no matter how you look at it. But what it forced was an increase in remote workers working from home, remote locations. So it drove up demands on things like VDI or virtual desktop infrastructure or end-user computing infrastructures, right? So some businesses prospered, which was good. In certain areas, the economy prospered. But overall, I think that drive also brought up some other negative issues, one of which was supply chain. So supply chain arose because now you've got a higher demand on hardware and software and IT products and parts to build components. But with people working remote and not in factories or on job sites like they were, the ability to make hardware and software slowed, and then the demand was higher, but then we had less inventory. So that led to problems with supply chain. And now the federal government agencies are aware of that. We've all kind of learned, right, from that. And now they're starting to ask in their procurement activities around RFIs and RFPs and RFQs about the vendor and their plans and activities around supply chain. So they are putting into their requirements, what is a company's plan? Are you doing 6-month, 9-month, 2, 3, 5-year forecasting on your ability to make technology so that we can count on you to be there for us? And I think it's wise that we do that because we got to take care of the country and the government and our people and national security requirements as well. So I think those requirements around supply chain, being in better control of our future, if you will, to be more assured that things are going to happen on time, will make that happen.
Well, Jim Cosby, thank you so much for taking some time to share your insights with us here at the VMware Public Sector Innovation Summit.
Wyatt, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.